All right, welcome to another episode of Piecing It Together, the podcast where we take a look at a new movie and try to figure out what movies inspired it. But we're not doing that today. No, it is Oscar weekend, and instead we're doing a special conversation, doing some predictions for what's going to win some of the big categories at the Oscars, as well as talk about some things that maybe should have been nominated. And joining me, as he did last year, is Ben Miller, film critic and podcaster, and I'm always happy to have Ben back on the show. We have a great conversation coming up, so that's what we'll be talking about today. Before we get to it, I got to remind you, as always, to make sure you're subscribed to Piecing It Together wherever you listen to podcasts. We have a lot of great episodes on the way, so definitely make sure you're subscribed. You can also follow us on social media at Piecing Pod. Join our Facebook group, Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces, where we continue the conversation about all the movies we talk about here on the show, and I'm sure we'll have a very fun, lively Oscars discussion this Sunday. So, with that said, let's talk Oscars. Ben Miller is back with us, and we are going to talk about the Oscars. Ben, how's it going?
It's going good, man. How are you?
I'm great. It's been kind of a little break from recording for me because I was out of town, so I'm about to get back into it and record a bunch of episodes all at once like I usually do, and starting off with this.
How it goes.
And looking forward to it. It's the Oscars. I mean, come on.
Always, it's my Super Bowl every year.
Exactly, absolutely. And strangely, with everything I've had going on, I actually completely forgot that they were this weekend. And it usually is such a big deal for me, but I've had so much going on with this trip and with various music projects I'm working on. I thought it was like later in March. Plus, they've been changing it every year the last couple of years.
Oscar season is getting longer and longer, and it's really wearing on people.
Yeah.
I agree.
It's like, who the hell knows what's going on? But yeah, it's always fun. It's always fun to try to make these predictions and talk about some things that should have been nominated along the way. So we will get into that. And last time you were on the show, we did the Banshees of Inisherin. I'm sure that'll come up a bunch during this conversation. But for people who have not heard my Oscar episodes in the past, we do what we think will win, what we think should win, and one extra thing that should have been nominated. And for time's sake, we kind of narrow this down. Best score, because, of course, I'm a composer, so I got to do best score. All of the acting awards, best director, and best picture. So that's what we're going to do here. And let's jump into it with best score. Our nominees are All Quiet on the Western Front, Babylon, The Banshees of Inisherin, Everything Everywhere All at Once, and The Fabelmans. What do you have? What do you think will win? What should win?
This is it's really up in the air. It's usually sometimes original score is really like set in stone way before time. But I see like nothing would surprise me outside of Everything Everywhere All at Once. I'll tell you what, if Everything Everywhere All at Once win best score, you're just like, okay, this is going to win everything it's nominated for.
Pure sweep from beginning to end of the night.
There's original score. It's the one thing where you're like, well, it doesn't have much of a chance. Same like score and song are essentially the two. You're like, no chance. But I mean, my heart says Justin Hurwitz. My brain says John Williams, but it's hard to bet against John Williams. But at the same time, people are way behind that All Quiet score, and then Carter Burwell's been getting some love these last couple of weeks. I mean,
sure.
In my head, because I think it's the best, I want to go with Hurwitz. But I also realize the names of Burwell and Williams might overcompensate everything else and end up just winning. So nothing would surprise me, though.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've got Babylon as your should win then.
Yes, I do.
Like I do too. Hurwitz, I mean, really just knocking it out of the park. And of course, the film's, box office disaster has hurt it in every category, and it could hurt it here too. But I mean, I feel like if they want to, celebrate it in any way, this is the way. And,
if there's any people's problems have with the movie, it's not Hurwitz is not on the list. Like he is at 100. Yeah, absolutely. He is so good in this. Yeah, exactly.
What do you think will win? What like if you have to pick one? Because it sounds like we're fluctuating a little here.
There's a chance that if Burwell wins original score, it might be the only Oscar Banshee of Inisherin win.
Mm.
But I want to lean more towards Rokel Berleman for All Quiet on the Western Front. Just
Okay.
that it's a score I don't particularly like,
Mm.
but it's very very memorable, and the Inception brrr, and
Yeah.
the lends the atmosphere to the movie. I understand why it's nominated. Um, All Quiet on the Western Front's kind of that technical achievement film that everybody likes to look at.
Yeah.
Technically,
Yeah.
it wouldn't surprise me if it wins here.
Yeah. That's exactly where I'm at. Will win. I've got All Quiet on the Western Front. I mean, definitely, I'd prefer Banshees. I'd
Mm,
prefer Babylon.
mm-hmm.
Those are kind of my main two. But
Yep.
yeah, I think this is. I think it's going to win, and then it's going to kind of lend itself to the night of it being like a possible, spoiler that
Yeah, I
ends up
agree.
winning other major
Mm-hmm.
awards. But we'll see what happens. But what's something that you think should have been nominated that wasn't?
Hildner Gunnadottir for Women Talking.
Oh, sure.
That nice, gentle, like foreboding score, adding to and a score that doesn't overpower the super talky narrative of that film in general. Really beautiful score.
Hmm.
I know a lot of people are really high on the Batman score. But I mean, that's the one I always go that I default to.
Yeah, sure. I know Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross get nominated
Mm.
every year, but I've got Bones and All, which I think
Oh,
is my favorite score that they've done in quite a while, actually. So, and I know they had two that could have possibly been
I was about
in
to say, I
contention.
thought you were going to throw me and say Empire of Light. I was like, okay,
Yeah, no, no, I'm on the Bones and All train here,
okay, I'm
but
with you. I get you.
yeah, so that would be my number one, and then just as like an extra shout out, I mean, we did do an entire favorite scores of the year episode,
Mm,
but an extra shout out to Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, Alexander
yeah,
Desplat, just a
yeah,
fantastic score. So
yeah.
a lot of great ones that could have been in there, but let's go on to supporting actress for our next category. We've got Angela Bassett for Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, Hung Shao for The Whale, Carrie Condon for The Banshees of Inisherin, Jamie Lee Curtis for Everything Everywhere All at Once, and Stephanie Hsu for Everything Everywhere All at Once. What will win and what should win?
Oh, what will win indeed? Much like this is another category that nothing would surprise me.
Yeah.
My it's between Curtis, Condon, and Bassett. It feels like it's going to be Angela Bassett. I think
Mm-hmm.
it probably should be, just for the sake of, like, how many other opportunity we since 1994, when she was nominated for What's Love Got to Do with It, everybody's like, oh well, she's eventually going to get an Oscar, and this is only her second
Sure.
nomination, so let's not mess around and not give her an Oscar. So please, let's give Angela Bassett an Oscar. She needs one. So I think she will win.
Yeah. Is that also your should win then?
No, because I love Carrie
Okay.
Condon. And because Carrie
Okay.
Condon is so good in the Banshees of Inisherin. It's by no the great thing about this category is I love all five performances. There's no, like,
Oh yeah.
bad one in the bunch. I rewatched Everything Everywhere All at Once the other day and was really taken by Stephanie Hsu, and I thought she
Hmm.
was incredible. But like, all five of these performances, I would love to have be the victory. But
Yeah.
Carrie Condon's my personal opinion.
Yeah. I'm lining right up with you on this
Yeah,
one. I
yeah,
think Angela Bassett will win this for a lot of the reasons you just said,
mm-hmm.
and it just feels right.
Yep,
But then Carrie Condon, one of my favorite performances of the year, period, across all these categories. And
mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, that's where I'm going with for the should win. But, like you said, it's a really strong category.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody here is really great. What's
Yes.
something that wasn't nominated that you felt should have been?
So it's a super dark film, and I understand why nobody saw it, and I understand why it didn't get any attention. But the film Nitram from Justin Kurzel
Mm,
from Australia, it's a really, really dark film. But man, the great Judy Davis is in that film, and she is incredible. Kind of the mother of a school of a mass shooting perpetrator,
yeah.
and kind of just standing like the type of woman who understands exactly what kind of monster she raised through not
Mm,
really any fault of her own. Just kind of like, well, he's a monster. There's nothing I could, this. There's much a nature
Right.
over nurture thing. He's like, I didn't do anything wrong. Just kind of and
Yeah.
she's hauntingly wonderful in it. Though a
Yeah.
secondary shout out to Dolly De Leon for Triangle of Sadness.
Yeah, that too. I was actually thinking about putting that for mine.
Mm.
But yeah, I haven't seen a trim yet, but I've heard great things, and I'm sure it's an incredibly depressing film,
Not
but I really
exactly a
want to
movie I
watch
want to
it.
watch again. Yes, but
Yeah,
exceptionally
absolutely.
well done. Yes.
Well, my should have been nominated. I'm going Kristen Stewart for Crimes of the Future. Just a real standout, the kind of weird standout performance that
It was
like
potent.
would have just
Potent.
it. Yes, very potent, and it would have been so exciting to see it, show up on an award show like this. It could just because it's so out there, and she's
Weirdo
just doing
wackadoo
such
performances.
interesting stuff.
The
Yeah,
you
you
know
gotta, you
like
gotta, you gotta, you gotta be excited about those wacky performances when they actually get in there. So,
yes, yeah.
yeah, Kristen Stewart's great in that, and yeah, let's go to supporting actor. We've got Brendan Gleeson for The Banshees of Inisherin, Brian Tyree Henry for Causeway, Judd Hirsch for The Fablemans, Barry Keoghan for The Banshees of Inisherin, and Ki Hui Kwan for Everything Everywhere All at Once. And I should just say really quickly, I still haven't seen Causeway. I'm hoping to catch
Mm.
it before this weekend's Oscars. It's the only thing on this list that I haven't seen yet. But what do you have for will win and should win?
They're the same person. It's Kiwi Kwan. There's a
Yep.
reason. This is the only. Any you can tell how full of crap any Oscar prognosticator is by this category. If anybody's like, Barry Keoghan has a chance, he's like, no, he doesn't. This is
No.
Kiwi Kwan's Oscar. It has been for months, and it's going to be on Sunday.
Yeah.
I love the performance. It's so endearing in a lot of different ways. The entire run of, and not to mention the publicity run to end all publicity runs, just an absolute top to bottom delight in every
Yeah.
interview, on every speech. It's nice to have him back, him and with Spielberg on the rounds and Brendan Fraser and then Harrison Ford coming in. It's perfect. And he's
Yeah.
great in the film and he deserves it. And I have no problem with him being the Oscar winner that he's going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I've also got it for will win and should win. And yeah, it's just a great story. And it's just such an endearing performance and so much fun. And yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, this is one of those moments that's, it's going to make everybody happy when it happens. So, like,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
seriously, why the hell not? Like,
Yeah.
come on. What do you have for something that should have been nominated?
I know a lot of people say like, oh, Paul Dano in the Fablemans or Elbrick Schucht in All Quiet on the Western Front. I'm gonna go a little bit off the beaten path and Edward Norton in Glass Onion, who
Oh,
was
nice.
so good at being a megalomaniacal idiot, just
Hmm.
nailing exactly what the character is supposed to be and the self awareness of it. It's if Norton was less self aware, that character would have been much more annoying. But he is completely on board with how stupid he's supposed to be. So
Yeah.
he's definitely on the side of knowing what's going on, and it's just a great comedic performance in every way.
Yeah, he's so funny in that, and yeah, he
Yes.
he absolutely nails that tone so perfectly. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a great pick. I went with a weirdo performance for my last one, so I'm going to go with another weirdo performance, and that's Mark Rylance in Bones and All.
Oh
Um,
man,
just
Sully
so
himself.
much fun.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there he is. Just ridiculous, and yeah, just memorable as hell. And if I'm being honest, like I actually like Michael Stahlberg even more than Mark Rylance, but that's more of like a one scene thing.
That's man. You want to talk about weird? Like, but
Yeah.
it's that everything about that movie is so off kilter,
Yeah.
and maybe that's why I kind of like it. Like because,
Yeah.
like I'm sure we'll get into it in Best Actress. I'm going to go ahead and go on a limb and say what your Best Actress should have been nominated is. But yeah, yeah, and
It's up
Mark
there.
yeah, it's up there. That Mark Rylance performance is something else. That movie is something else. I agree. So that's a fun pick. I like it.
Awesome. Well, let's go to lead actress. We've got Kate Blanchett for Tar, Anna de Armas for Blonde, Andrea Riseborough for To Leslie, Michelle Williams in The Fablemans, and Michelle Yeoh in Everything Everywhere All at Once. What do you think will win and what should win?
A couple of weeks ago, I'd have said, "Man, this is neck and neck," and then the last couple of weeks happened, and I'm like, "Okay, I think Michelle Yeoh probably has this in the bag."
Hmm.
It's you can kind of some people can talk themselves into Kate Blanchett getting her third Oscar, but that's the big thing. This is changing. It's going to be her third Oscar if she gets it, and they're like, "Okay, like does Kate Blanchett probably deserve three Oscars?" I do think she does, and
Sure.
she's incredible in Tar. But I think the Everything Everywhere All at Once momentum has gotten to a point where I don't think Michelle Yeoh is deniable at this point. I think she's gonna probably comfortably get to there, with Kate Blanchett coming in a nice second as far as will win.
Yeah, for sure. So, where do you land on the should? Like, who do you think, like, really? Because it's such a toss up, really, between the two.
Best Actress was such a juggernaut this year. There's no wrong answer. Like,
Hmm.
I'm not on the man. Kate Blanchett is so monumental in Tars. Like, but so is Michelle Yeoh in Everything Everywhere at Once. It's the perfect role for the perfect actress and the perfect time in her
Hmm.
career. And you're like, well, it's I always kind of find it odd whenever people are like they could it's like this is Blanchett versus Yo, and I'm like I don't know why it's such a competition. Like, oh, you have to land on one side. I'm not gonna land on one side because I like them
Yeah,
both.
too
So
difficult.
yeah, yeah.
All
There's only
right.
the only performance in the entire lineup that I don't like is Michelle Williams.
I completely agree with
I
that, and
did not like it. Like she's
yeah, it's a difficult role, though.
yeah, Spielberg's mom's a lot, but
Hmm.
I mean, there's a step of it's that old Family Guy Dharma and Greg sketch. It's like get down from that table. You get up on this table. Like it's like okay, like whatever.
Yeah, I'm also one of the rare people who actually really like Blonde, and Anna de Armas
I
is
did too.
fantastic. But yeah, and but it really is between Kate Blanchett and
Yeah.
Michelle Yeoh. I think Michelle Yeoh will win for sure.
Hmm.
I'm leaning Kate Blanchett though. I think they're both fantastic, but I think Kate Blanchett, like that character, is just something we're gonna continue to talk about for like so many years after the
I
film, and
agree.
I just think it really is, just something that's going to be so memorable, and we're just going to be continuing to break it down for years and years to come, and so that's why I lean towards Kate Blanchett and Tar, but Michelle Yeoh is absolutely deserving.
Yeah, I think Tar is going to be one of those movies like The Master,
Mm,
where 10 years later everybody's like, "Hey, you know what was one of the best movies of the decade? The Master." Same thing with Tar. They'd be like, "Hey, we kind
yeah.
of slept on like it's like we didn't sleep on Tar. It got a bunch of Oscar nominations, but I mean, there's been some like, hey, should Tar win Best Original Screenplay talk, which I don't think is going to happen, but I mean, it's people love that movie.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what's something that should have been nominated that wasn't?
There's like I said, the Best Actress is such a juggernaut, and
Hmm.
part of me always defaults to Daniel Deadweiler until a film I
Mm,
didn't necessarily fall in love with, but I thought she was remarkable. An
yeah,
eye acting clinic of just doing like showing without saying. Man, she is
sure.
so good until just heartbreaking. But another shout out to Tong Wei from Decision to Leave. A
Oh, okay, yeah.
hauntingly confused. It's a femme fatale, an erotic thriller without any eroticism. A
Mm,
very very tricky role to play, and she just nailed it.
right on. Yeah, yeah. Good picks there. I also have two picks for my should have been nominated, so I'm glad you did. I went with Mia Goth for Pearl because
Mm-mm.
let's get some horror into the Oscars. Why not? And another
Yeah,
weirdo performance.
yeah,
But then on the totally opposite end of things, Emma Thompson for Good Luck to You, Leo
yes,
Grand. Such a
yes.
great movie that was completely forgotten about. I know there was some question about whether it's even eligible because some
Mm,
things that are straight to streaming are
yeah.
eligible and some aren't. There's all these kinds of rules, but yeah, I mean, it really should have been in the conversation. It's such an amazing performance.
It's the problem with some of those straight to streaming things. It's like even if they're exceptionally good, like Cha Cha Real Smooth on Apple or Good Luck to You, Lilo Grand or something like that, it just kind of gets lost in the shuffle just because
Yeah,
oh it got released in April and the Oscars are a marathon, not a sprint, and it takes too long. And by the time it's like it doesn't come back into the consciousness until that point.
yeah, absolutely. Well, let's go to Best Lead Actor. We've got Austin Butler for Elvis, Colin Farrell for The Banshees of Inisherin, Brendan Fraser for The Whale, Paul Mescal for After Sun, and Bill Nye for Living. What do you got for should win, and what do you think will win? This is tough. This is really tough. This one.
There's been so much talk about, is it going to be Fraser? Like, this is the only category that Everything Everywhere at Once doesn't play any sort of part in. So you're just like,
True.
well, then you can't play on the side of momentum. I land on the Brendan Fraser because of the way the Academy treats people like Angela Bassett. They're like, oh, she's going to be around forever, so we'll have a chance to nominate him again. I think they'll do that with Austin Butler. They're like, he's young, he's got a lot of chances. We don't need to give it to him now. We don't want to give it to him young. We'll give it to him later. And they look at like Brendan Fraser, and they're going to be like, okay, this is the time. This might be his only chance. Let's go ahead and give him the Oscar. I don't like I have I've heard some like, hey, Fraser and Butler will vote split and Colin Farrell will win. Kind of like Frances McDormand in 2020, but I'm like, I don't necessarily prescribe to that.
Right.
But I think Fraser will pull it out, but Butler winning won't surprise me.
Yeah, fair enough. Which one do you think should win? Like, where do you land?
I don't like either of those movies. I like Butler's performance in Elvis more than I like Fraser's performance in The Whale. I don't love Elvis, but I think what Butler's doing in Elvis is really impressive. That being said, it's again not a situation where I'm like, oh, they're bad performances. Colin Farrell should win, but of the nominees, but what Butler is almost a secondary character in the film. Like he's like, you could talk like he's not a supporting character, but he's almost not the focus. He doesn't have like a narrative. He's just It's all about Colonel Tom Parker's view of him.
Right. Yeah, because it is, and it's also just such a whirlwind of a film that there's so much happening. It's like it doesn't get the chance to kind of take it over at any point.
Absolutely, it's just he's at 100 and he stays at 100 the whole time. Yeah,
absolutely.
It's exhausting. Yeah.
Well, I also think Brendan Fraser will win, even though it's a very difficult category to predict. I also think Colin Farrell should win. He's so damn good, and it's just my favorite performance of the year. With Brendan Fraser, if he does win, along with like Everything Everywhere All at Once, winning a whole lot of stuff, like, it's in a lot of ways, I hate to talk about it like politically or whatever, but they're like kind of giving people what they want in a way. And that could potentially be a good thing for the Oscars going forward with as far as viewership and all that kind of stuff and engagement. So, I mean, it's a good thing. I mean, giving it to Bill Nye isn't going to do anybody any favors.
No,
even though it's
a film that nobody saw. Like, it's hard for people like us who are like, oh, we have the access and it's still tough for us to see it, then that's a barrier you have to get through.
Absolutely. Well, what's something that should have been nominated?
I talked about Nitram and Judy Davis, and I have to go to the title character from Nitram, Caleb Landry Jones. A man from Texas who puts on the accent to end all Australian accents. He is so good in that movie and haunting. And Caleb Landry Jones is a actor I have some issues with as far as most performances. Essentially, we talked about kind of buggy-eyed crazy performances, the master of buggy-eyed crazy performances, and he kind of dials that back while still keeping ticks of it. We're playing a very unsympathetic character, an incredible performance. Do a special shout out though to Jeremy Pope in The Inspection, who is really, really good. And I thought if more people had seen that movie, he'd probably end up in this lineup.
Right on. Yeah, I really like Caleb Landry Jones. Just rewatched Antiviral right before the new Brandon Cronenberg came out, and he's something to watch, and he'll end up in one of these lineups one of these days, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
My should have been nominated, Alexander Skarsgård for The Northman. What a performance! Like, as far as like awarding a performance for like dedication to a role, like,
absolutely,
it is just just insane what he went through with that movie. And another one that, it unfortunately didn't do very well, and I think that kind of hurt its chances in like showing up anywhere in these
Even
nominations.
yeah, I mean, if you look at the Northman, the fact that it didn't even sniff a craft nomination anywhere, like no precursors anywhere for the Northman, anything, it's
Yeah.
insane. Especially when you look at that movie, like the cinematography, the production design, the editing, even like Nicole Kidman's performance or something shows up somewhere in a long list. Nothing. It's insane.
Yeah.
That movie is a technical marvel, and it got nowhere.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, let's go to Best Director. We've got Martin McDonagh for The Banshees of Inisherin. We've got Daniels for Everything Everywhere All at Once. Steven Spielberg for The Fablemans. Todd Field for Tar. And Ruben Östlund for The Triangle of Sadness. What do you think will win?
That a month ago I'd have said Spielberg. This is the only Oscar that The Fablemans is going to get. Spielberg's going to walk away with it, and then the Daniels just started winning everything, and
Yeah.
I think they're going to win again. It's kind
Yeah.
of the same thing with Blanchett and actress. It's like, do you want to give Spielberg his third Oscar, or do you want to give somebody like the Daniels their first Oscar for something this monumental? Or on the flip side, are they going to be like, well, they're going to get original screenplay, so that's when they get their Oscar, and then we
Hmm.
can give Spielberg his third. It's I'm not saying it's locked in, but I feel much more secure about saying the Daniels are going to win Best Director than I do about some other categories. Like I
Yeah.
think Daniels have a better chance than like Michelle Yeoh. I think is closer to not getting her Oscar than I do think they're going to lose Best Director. I think
Right.
they're probably pretty secure in Best Director with Spielberg
Yeah.
coming in a distant second.
Gotcha. What do you think should win?
I mean, the Banshees of Inisherin was my favorite movie of the year. It's
Hmm.
not exactly a director movie, but I mean the things that Martin McDonagh does in that movie that could really spun it into a lot of different directions. It's probably his most restrained movie of
Yeah,
his
sure.
filmography. Like everything's a little more, the chaotic energy that we're kind of used to in his films is not really there, and
Yeah.
the level of restraint. I think he would be my pick, but I like the Daniels. I don't have a problem with them winning this
Yeah.
one.
Absolutely. Yeah, I also have Daniels for a will win and should win, and I'll be accepting that award for Swiss Army Man. By the way, when they win that, because that was my favorite movie of 2016. I don't care what anybody says. So
Well, you're
yeah,
talking about your favorite movies from years, man. Highly represented in this between Swiss Army Man and Seven Psychopaths.
yeah,
You're just like, well, can we award those instead? Yeah.
yep. It's an interesting year for directors making follow-ups to my favorite movies of years.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
Should we talk really quickly about how Ruben Östlund got into this category? It just seems like such a weird nomination. Like I love Triangle of Sadness, but it doesn't seem like it fits.
I agree. And ever since since the nominations announced, everybody's kind of like, okay, well, McDonagh and Banshees of Sharon are up there. Kwan and Spielberg are going for the win, or the Daniels and Spielberg going for the win. And there's been kind of like a little bit of like, who really should win this category is Todd Field. And then radio silence on Ruben Östlund. Just not a
Yeah.
word. Like, I think everybody's kind of looking at it going like, well, where's Edward Berger? Where's Joseph Kosinski? Where's, it's
Hmm.
kind of like there are all these other ones that should have been in there that
Yep.
Ruben Östlund doesn't deserve. It's
Yeah.
strange, like the respect that he gets. And then it's the Triangle of Sadness hype in general has just disappeared completely. Like
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
like if you do the Oscar nominations today, I'm not sure it gets anything besides maybe Dolly De Leon, but besides that, I don't know if it repeats the success that it had.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an odd one, and like I said, I really liked it, but
Me too.
yeah, I just can't believe it's in there. So it's very
Yeah.
strange. But what is something that didn't get nominated that you think should have?
I yeah, it's such a cliche to be like, well, you need women representation, but whenever you have a movie like The Woman King and the
Mm.
monumental achievement that it is, and The Woman King, just you want to talk about the biggest loser of the Oscars of like, how did it not get anything anywhere? The Woman King is the one where you're like, you look at it and you're like, no Viola Davis, those costumes, the production design, the editing, all the action. Yeah, it made money, but I mean, Gina Price Bythewood is the director of that film in every way. Like, it steers the entire narrative in an incredible way. And she, by the way, she's never made a bad movie. FYI, every movie you go back and they're all good. She'll be. I'm sure she'll be there one day. But she
Yeah.
was really good in that. The Woman King. So she's the one that I kind of looked and should have been in that lineup.
Right on. Yeah, good pick for sure. I was gonna go Joseph Kosinski because I
Mm.
mean Top Gun Maverick is just so freaking good. But I was also thinking of Park Chan Wook for Decision to Leave.
Yes.
I mentioned on our top 10 of the year episode that I was a little mystified by the film. Like it's so quick and I was a little confusing at times. But
Hmm.
God, is it like impressive? Like there's just so
Yes.
much going on, and the way
Everybody
that
shows that mirror reflection
yeah.
still. I've seen that on
It's a
Twitter.
showy film, and it's
Absolutely.
one that I think we'll be returning to for many years to just see all the
Yes.
stuff he did in it. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's definitely one that could have been in the conversation there.
That's a great pick.
That brings us to Best Pictures. So we have All Quiet on the Western Front, Avatar: The Way of Water, The Banshees of Inisherin, Elvis, Everything Everywhere All at Once, The Fablemans, Tar, Top Gun Maverick, Triangle of Sadness, and Women Talking. What do you think is going to win this?
This it's going to be Everything Everywhere All at Once, and it's going to be easy. This
Yeah,
is it's a question of how many Oscars it's going to win. People are
sure.
talking. Are like, is it going to win 5? Is it going to win 8? It's kind of it's almost predestined at this point. Like, if it doesn't win, it's going to be a monumental, like, how in the world did that not happen? And if it doesn't happen, I don't know what's going to beat it. Like,
Hmm.
like if you can say, oh, it's going to be Top Gun, it's like, well, that for some reason the luster is gone completely from that film, at least Oscar wise. Some people are talking themselves into All Quiet on the Western Front because of BAFTA's weird decisions, but you're overthinking it. It's going to be Everything Everywhere All at Once, and it's a very worthy Best Picture winner, and a movie that is really, really weird for a Best Picture winner, which is
Yeah.
out of the ordinary, like one of the weirder Best Picture winners we will ever have.
Yeah.
Very
Absolutely.
deserving.
Yeah. Well, I definitely think it's going to win.
Mm.
I do think there's that slight chance All Quiet on the Western Front does come in and steal it, which would be really depressing. So I hope not. And the only thing that I think could potentially deserve to spoil it would be Top Gun Maverick, just because
Mm.
of just the attention to craft and detail that they put into making that movie, and just really making a movie that got us all back to the theaters, got us excited about movies. Like it's worth awarding that for everything that movie has done for
Steven
movies.
Spielberg admitted
And
it saved cinema.
it did. It really did. But yeah, I can't decide should win if it's Everything Everywhere All at Once or Top Gun Maverick. I'm kind of tied on them, but I guess it's going to win anyway. So just give it to Everything Everywhere All at Once. It's
Banshees of
fine.
Inisherin is my should win, but
Yeah.
I recognize that it's kind of like, oh, is my number one film not going to win? Okay, I'll give it my number 3 film of the year. It's like, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to be disappointed when it wins.
Yeah. What do you think should have been nominated for Best Picture? I know there's a lot of things that could have squeezed their way in, but what do you think?
I'm going to give a shout out to a movie that very few people love as much as I do. It's a film called Girl Picture.
Mm.
It was Finland's international film submission. Was not shortlisted and didn't show up anywhere. I saw it back at Sundance and I fell in love with it immediately. It was number one my entire year until Banshees of Inisherin came along. It's about 3 girls. It's a girl picture. It's about
Yeah.
coming of age. These best friends, and one is kind of on a search for pleasure, and the other is kind of a search for love. And it's a really, really interestingly well done movie. It's just small and it's in Finnish, so a lot of people didn't see it. And one of my favorites It's one of my favorite films I've seen in a really, really long time. It will never get the credit it ever deserves. But I love it so much, and I'll watch it again and again.
I'm looking forward to checking it out. I actually haven't seen it, and it sounds great. So yeah, I'm gonna have to
Nobody
check that
has.
out
That's
for
the problem.
sure.
I can't talk to anybody about girl except the four people who have seen Girl Picture. We just rave about to each other. So
Yeah, maybe I'll be the next one to join the group. But
yeah. Yes.
yeah, I talked about on our top 10 of the year how much I love 3,000 Years of Longing, but that's such a long shot that I wouldn't even consider it something that would get nominated. The other ones that I was considering for this, I mean, I've already talked about Bones and All,
Mm.
maybe a little too out there, too weird. I also think Nope should have been in conversation, but again,
Another
maybe a
movie
little
that's
too.
ridiculous that got no nominations.
Yeah, I don't understand why it was completely ignored. So, since it was completely ignored, I'll push that one aside and I'll go with the one that I don't understand how it didn't squeeze in, maybe in Triangle of Sadness's space, and that's Babylon. We
Mm.
know that the Academy loves movies about movies. It's such a showy movie. It's such a show off, piece of filmmaking.
Hmm.
I guess it's the box office worked against it. Like, that's the only thing I could think of. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense why it's not in there.
Yeah, it seems there's a. I think it's a combination of fatigue based off of Margot Robbie, Brad Pitt fatigue,
Mm.
and Damien Chazelle fatigue. Of
Hmm.
everybody's like, oh, do we really want another La La Land season of
Yeah.
having to, kind of that kind of narrative and this wonderkin doing all this kind of stuff? And that movie is a lot.
Yeah.
Like in the first 5 minutes, you have an orgy, a man getting peed in his mouth, and an elephant
Hmm.
pooping on somebody in the first 5 minutes. And
Yeah. Oh,
the
yeah.
film doesn't let up from there. So I mean,
Nope.
I understand. I understand why. I understand why people weren't receptive to it. But I agree. It's a little baffling that it didn't have the outside the couple technical nominations that it had.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, that is all the categories that we're going through here. It's going to be, an interesting weekend, seeing what happens, seeing how film Twitter erupts with every single thing.
Yep.
We'll see if Anna de Armas wins, and then everybody just completely melts down. But yeah, we'll see what happens. But we always close these things out by asking the guest, "What's something you watched recently you want to recommend to our listeners?"
I've been trying to knock out a bunch of older films. It's a never ending cycle of trying to watch stuff that I've missed throughout the years, and I went back and watched an old movie called A Free Soul, Oscar winner from 1931, starring Lionel Barrymore and Norma Shear. Good film, a little melodramatic. It's one of those like, oh, I had my father's an alcoholic, and he can't get his life together because he's such an alcoholic.
Hmm.
But as still a good movie. Great Norma Shear performance. A young Clark Gable in that film.
Okay.
Go check that one out. And then I watched the only film from the Best Picture lineup that I hadn't seen, and I watched that 2 days ago, Avatar, The Way of Water, and I was blown away by it. Like, it was a technical marvel. A
Oh yeah.
surefire Oscar winner for visual effects, and it is an undeniable. It's going to be an undeniable victor there too.
Yeah, maybe we'll get another Oscar for James Cameron around like Avatar 4 or 5 or something.
Yeah,
Bring it
sure.
back around. So, Ben, thanks as always for doing the show and for so
My
last
pleasure.
minute jumping on for this Oscar episode. Where can people
My
find you and
pleasure.
your podcast?
You can find me on Twitter at nebasbin, letterbox neb810 on Instagram, Ben Biller Movies. My podcast, Film Critic and Common Man, me and my brother talk films. We got our episode on The Town coming out on Saturday,
Nice.
so catch that. You can find us on Twitter at Critic Common Pod and our YouTube channel and anywhere you get your podcast. And I have my own site, Ice Cream for Freaks, where I host all the various things I do, including the link to this podcast and the other podcasts and articles I write.
Awesome. Yeah, you know what we're actually about to do because we're doing 2012 on
Mm.
Awesome Movie Year. So Argo is the Best Picture winner. So I'm going to be watching that. I haven't seen The Town in a while, and I loved it when it
Mm.
came out. I'm going to have to rewatch that and then listen to your episode. So that'll
Yeah,
be cool.
it's I think The Town is parts of the reason that Argo was so successful is because everybody's like, Town was great, we didn't give it enough stuff. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
yeah, kind of lends itself to itself. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Ben, again, thanks for being here, and hopefully we'll get you back again sometime
Thank you
soon.
so much for having me.
I'm Josh Bell.
And I'm Jason Harris, and we co-host a podcast called Awesome Movie Year.
Each season, we take a look back at an awesome year for movies, which is every year.
We deep dive into these specific years, and we pick out why they were such great years for films. We go over the biggest hits, the biggest flops, the best picture, some personal picks, some cult classics.
Years we've covered in past seasons include 1994, 2003, 1977, and 1984, and we've got all of film history to look forward to. So check us out at awesomemovieyear.com or wherever you listen to podcasts.
All right, so I hope you enjoyed that conversation about this weekend's upcoming Oscars. Thanks to Ben Miller for joining me, and thank you to all of you for listening. If you're enjoying what we do here on Piecing It Together, of course, make sure you're subscribed wherever it is that you're listening. But also, drop the comments over on Good Pods. You could drop comments. We're actually about to, they just started a whole new thing on Spotify where you're going to be able to do comments. So check that out if I've enabled it yet. I probably will have by the time this goes up. You can also, of course, get in touch over on social media at Piecing Pod. Join our Facebook group, Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces. What I'm trying to tell you is I love hearing from you all. So get in touch. And of course, if you ever want to join me for an episode, there's lots of movies coming up that I'm going to want to cover, and I'm always looking for new guests. So do get in touch. We also have a Patreon, the Produced by David Rosen Patreon, where I post bonus and advanced content from Piecing It Together, as well as from Awesome Movie Year and from my music career. So lots of great stuff over there. It's patreon.com/bydavidrosen. Just subscribe to the show, keep listening. But if you want to support us that way, I do appreciate it. So, with that said, let's close this out with a piece of music like I always do. And let's see, what should I play today? I feel like playing a new song. I don't even know if this is done yet, and I'm not even going to tell you the title of it just because it's not necessarily 100% done, but this will be on my next album. So, a little preview of something I've been working on. So, I hope you enjoy it, and of course, you could check out bydavidrosen.com, my website for my music, and follow me on social media at bydavidrosen. That's my music Twitter and Instagram and all that stuff for more news when these new albums will be coming. But yeah, hope you enjoy this new track, and we'll be back with more Piecing It Together real soon.
An All Points West production, produced by David Rosen in Las Vegas.